box.
Okay.
We'll try to get to everybody. I know it's later than the 11 o'clock, but some people want to hang out.
Yeah.
And that's cool too.
That's why we're here.
So, absolutely. I'm seeing that most of the questions that are in the chat box is that unemployment is a really, really big thing. And how do I get through or get somebody to respond? Or I want to send this chat to New Jersey Department of Labor Unemployment so they can see that all of these people are waiting and no one's getting through and no one's getting answers, which is very frustrating for us as listeners, for you as job seekers to try and get through.
Right. So I just want to add one piece because we focus on employees and this type of thing. I'm an employer. I've had to cut hours for some employees. We are waiting for how many weeks now for the federal loans to come through? And then it turns out they went to like Ruth's Chris and the NBA and a bunch of other places that didn't need them, and God knows why they even applied. Groups that have franchises, 100 of them put in and got 100 times the max they could get. This is not well. And I'm saying my staff cannot return full-time because we're waiting for federal money. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And we're on exactly this. Now, how can I help them? I can get them off unemployment if I could get my federal dough. You know, so the system has collapsed. That's what we're seeing. You know, in the federal finance world, they call it like the stress test. We have flunked the stress test. The government is not working. And actually, I'll be honest with you. I've said, and I've read, there's likely, you know, where we saw like 100 sponsored people go out and protest in Michigan to open the economy or whatever. There's going to be 10,000 crazed workers who are saying, I can't feed my kid. You know, no justice, no peace. So this has to work. The unemployment benefit system is the #1 safety net right now. Everything else is number 5 and more. But if that system doesn't work, people are going to be sorely aggrieved and they're going to make their voices heard. My prediction.
Just an FYI, the state is literally working as fast as they can on this. They see that they're way behind the times. I think someone had put in the comments, Cobalt is 50 years old. Yes, it is. We all know that. Anybody that's not even in IT knows that it's a very old system. They're just getting those funds to upgrade the programs and the IT infrastructure. So it's going to take people and it's going to take time to upgrade that. And where does that leave us in the meantime? Waiting. So yes, you have to take care of you, and you might be eligible for unemployment or another, you know, monetary thing, but you have to keep at them and make sure that they don't forget about you. And if you applied in the beginning of March, it doesn't mean that you're not eligible now in the beginning of May, because things change and funds get released and laws change and new things get put into place. And just like Hanan said, that some people took all the money, some people gave it back, but not everyone, and that is more of a disbursement. So you just don't know from day to day, hour to hour, what works for you or what could work for you.
Okay, anything else on our list? Christine? Any other questions?
I think that's it. It. How does the
Barbara Usack has a question.
Pay employees were brought back due to some? How does the PPP pay employees that are brought back due to this loan?
Barbara, was that your question?
Anita.
No, it wasn't. Okay. Barbara had a question too, but I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, what happens is this federal money, it's supposed to be a loan, but if you use it the way that the feds say they want it used, it's forgiven. the money is basically put back into the coffers of the business, and then the business uses it to rehire and pay the employees. And I say rehire. It's possible theoretically that somebody could have held on to people long enough to get the money. And it's possible if you were the first one in line, or if you had a particularly great banker, that you've already got the money. But bottom line is, people, including me, I looked at it, I kept my people on for about 5 weeks after the crisis started. And then I'm like, my accountant's saying, now you're going deep in the red, don't do it. So I had to cut back hours.
Does the business need to be in business, like actively providing a service to receive that PPP?
Yeah. This isn't for startups. The idea of this money was not to help the employer. It was to help keep the employees employed. It was a preventive means. Now, obviously, if the employees are working, the idea is if we're being productive, then we're earning money too. And, these things go together. But the primary push was to protect the continuing work and income of employees so that they would not have to stay on unemployment insurance, or they would not have to go on it. And that's my plan. If I get this dough, my people are coming back in. That's what we're going to do. And they're counting on it. They write me every 3-4 days. What did we hear yet? I'm calling the banker today. Where's the dough? That's what we have to do.
Are you familiar with the Pennsylvania laws, Hanan?
No, well, probably no, but try me.
I live and work in Pennsylvania and decided to self-isolate for the last 4 weeks. My employer is considered essential since we make parts for ventilators. Can they terminate my job since I decided to stay home? I want to return to work next week.
What a great question. First of all, there's federal law that applies. That's not just Pennsylvania. I'm glad that question came up right now, because we really sort of skirted around it. We didn't really say, what about an employee's fear? They just have a fear. They're not ready to go back, or they're caring for some child or a parent or whatever it might be. I think the thing to be doing there is just call the employer. If they have an HR department, talk to the HR people. If they don't, talk to your immediate manager. Just have the conversation. It may not involve lawyering at all. It may not involve a dispute. If they say it was essential and you didn't show up, the articles I've read say the managers better get the reason. Don't just say you didn't show up and it was essential and you're fired. Ask the question, why did you stay out? And listen to it and try to figure out, is it a strong enough reason to justify and make an exception? And of course, whatever you do, depending on how big the place is, there might be 2, 3, 4 other people. So you have to measure, if I took that step here, how am I going to justify it over there? And even though they might not be talking to each other, if somebody makes a claim of some kind, all those examples are coming back. I do that all the time. I will call somebody in a severance situation and they say, oh, we only give 2 weeks. And I say, well, here's a list of 6 people who 6 months ago, this one got 10 weeks, that one got 14 weeks. And, you kind of put them on the spot with that. So management needs to be careful is the bottom line, and listen.
Absolutely. And that's, again, from an HR standpoint as well, that you're treating everyone equally. And there's just so many laws that are going on to know what is the right thing to do. The articles I'm reading, whether it is from SHRM, Society of Human Resources Management, or other HR publications, how any employee treats their staff right now during COVID-19 will affect what anyone thinks of them, their brand, and treatment overall for the next 5 years. So 5 months will affect their next 5 years, whether they go out, whether they stay in business, whether they're a good egg or whether they're not so much. which is why your employee bucket list is so important right now, because you don't want to work for an unethical employer. You want to work for someone that's going to take care of you, if you
Yeah.
possibly can.
When I hear employee bucket list, I think somebody's going to die.
Oh gosh!
I could be making that up. Okay, I'm unmuting Barbara Usack, who has a question.
Thanks. I just recently read an article about the reason that we're getting the extra 600, because for a lot of us, we're actually making more being unemployed than we were when we were working. And the purpose of that is to keep us home. So there's that kind of dichotomy. We need to find work, but yet we have to stay home. And it feels like the longer we stay home, the harder it's going to be to get a job. But yet, the more we stay home, the sooner the economy is going to be able to come back to where it's supposed to be. Do you have any thoughts on any of that?
Well, I do. First of all, I don't think it's in the law that the purpose, there's no requirement that you check off a box to get the money. I'm staying home. I'm not going back to work.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I wasn't saying that if that was misleading, but that was the purpose of it, was to help people stay home.
Right. So I actually have a different theory about the purpose of it, because I've heard people, there's always that thing about, oh, well, you know, we do this and people are getting overpaid. And you know what we have to have in this country? We have to have people who are spending money. And the number one way to get the M1 currency going around and around to produce jobs and, you know, home building and a bunch of stuff is to have little people get not millions of dollars, not even hundreds of thousands, but the most you're probably going to get is $60,000 between unemployment and that federal subsidy. But if you take that money, you're going to spend it. And that's what's going to help the economy. That's my personal thought, but you know, I can't say that I'm any more right than you are. So
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so I can't see everybody. I can only see a few people. And I'm going to say, if you have any more questions,
Feel free to
well, here's who
reach
I
out
can
to-
see. Here's who I can see. I can see Darcy. This is my best romper room impression. I can see Darcy.
It's Brady Bunch on steroids. That's
and
what you
Ken
call it, right?
And David and Nancy and Barbara. They never called Hanan on that show. Pissed me off. And Harold, does any of you have a question? Just raise
Hollywood
your hand.
Squares. That's it. Yeah.
Well, Hanan, you could switch to gallery view, or if you're in speaker view and we're all on the top, you could scroll left and right and see everybody else.
How do I get to gallery view, my
In
friend?
the upper right corner, you have 9 dots. It looks like a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, the little cube in the upper right.
And it'll,
I don't
if
have
you
that.
highlight, if you kind of put your mouse
Yeah, you
up.
do.
I have a speaker view.
Yeah, right next
Yeah,
to
click
it.
on,
it.
then that
Next to
means
it.
you're in gallery. No. That
Oh,
means you're in
Yeah,
gallery.
but I can
view.
only see the people I can see. There's more people on this call than 10.
Right,
can't
but next
fit them
to
all.
the list of the images, the thumbnails of people, there's a little arrow someplace, like to one side or the other, and you can scroll them left and right or up and down.
Yeah, well,
Some of us have that, David. I don't know. I have that.
I'm not saying no, but anyway, so who's CIE?
That's me. Hi.
Do you have a question?
I was trying to log in with my every other Zoom call, I could use my regular name, and this one would only let me do Facebook, even though I had the information, just so you know. So I'm Carol Brandy. I've been unemployed. It wasn't about unemployment benefits. I can't get any of that. I've been unemployed a long time because I was taking care of a parent.
Yeah.
And I'm drowning more now. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. I say the same thing. Things were difficult before, they're now impossible. I read an article. This is a showstopper, okay? A psychologist writes an article to say there's a class of people who are actually happier during this crisis than they were before.
I read that article too.
Did you really? It's unbelievable. So for example, if you are a hypochondriac, you are thrilled. If you are an anxietant, this is like your bath. You know, it was just really funny. It made me laugh. Anyway, so, okay, I've taken another chance.
I don't know if you can hear me. I have
I
a
can.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm currently employed, but I just got word that a piece of my job, which is the one that's keeping me busy at home because I'm an administrative assistant,
Yeah.
they're outsourcing to India. And unless we go back into an office, after my second half of my job is done in the office. So I'm thinking I should be concerned that I might be laid off.
Let me think about that for a second. Yes. Yes, you should be concerned. You should be looking for other work. But on the other hand, if you can't find something right away, and it's going to be hard to do, there's many fewer jobs for many more prospects, right? So you might be forced into doing something for the short term, unless you're financially, independent. We're coal miners. We're going to be, look, I'm prospecting for work that I haven't done for a while. People will call me up. I say, yes, I will do that. I can't believe it, but you do what's there.
Hanan's on this call, and this is his first time on Zoom. He's never done this before. And so we're prospecting. We're doing stuff that is totally out of all of our comfort zones, and we're all learning as we go, including myself. I've never hosted a Zoom call before. So, yeah, okay. We'll try it and see what happens. So, yeah, that goes for everyone.
Right. And, the coal mines always have a canary. You just have to figure out if you're the canary. Is Alex still on the line?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, just hold 1 second. Is Alex here or gone? Oh, all right. So I just want to say to the few remaining, he did a great job. He completely rehabilitated me. I started singing. I could have danced all night. Alex turned me into a non-professional Zoom person. Even though Frank Kovac said, don't do it.
Well, thank you, Alex and David and Kenneth and everyone for your tips and information.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Absolutely, Joyce.
Yeah. Hi, how are you, Christine? So, thank you. So, listen, the young lady who just mentioned that her remote position was being outsourced to India, that brings up like a whole new can of worms for me. I'm in IT, and I'm a project manager, and every aspect of a project has an overseas, offshore aspect. But on the other hand, our onshore components, people are not allowed to work virtually. That makes no sense to me, because offshore is virtual, but onshore we have to be on site. And now after COVID, the jobs are being done virtually. So I guess I don't know how to ask the question, but I know people are feeling what I'm trying to say. How are we now going to dance around? How can I tell my employer without him saying, well, I'll find somebody offshore? How can I tell him, why can't I work at home? I've done it I'm not working, but if I were, I've done it for a month or two. Offshore in India do it every day. I want to dance around that job.
So I want to thank you for your question. That is an awesome question. So how big is the workforce?
Well, normally it's at like a big corporation like Verizon or AT&T. Those have been my experience. So they're large.
So the employer so you're saying you're not working now, meaning you're not working for any employer, or you have
Correct.
an employer? Okay.
Right now I'm seeking employment, but.
I gotcha. So what you're saying is if you get in there and they say to you, hey, this is the condition, and you're like, no, but I want to work from home. And they say, too bad. What is your option there? I get it. So my response to you is, unfortunately, employers have never been in a stronger position than they are right now. Now, they may be in a weak position financially, but as far as the kind of guillotine effect, they can do pretty much what they want. And I'm not saying that they will, but some will. So if your hiring person has a choice between somebody who will do as they ask and somebody who will not, you know what's going to happen. So then you have to decide, given that choice, start looking at other possible employers. I mean, there's nothing wrong with every coach that comes to PSG or the Breakfast Club or all the other ones, Christine's group. Every coach, every HR person will say, there's nothing wrong with getting a job and still looking for another job. Not only is there nothing wrong with it, there's pretty much everything right about it. It doesn't make you disloyal. It makes you looking out for yourself, which is what the New York Times says we're all doing now, which we were pretty much doing anyway. This just made it worse, or made a kind of shine a brighter light on it. So if you have to look, this comes back to something that I do every day. It's basic negotiating strategy. You take what's there, you do the best that you can, and then you look elsewhere at the same time and see if you can improve. In fact, the best way to get the next job is to get this job. Go into it saying, I'll do this as long as I can, but look, I tell people on the way out of jobs, they're either on a performance improvement or they're about to be laid off, not for financial reasons. Let's say they're about to be fired. I say to them, hang in there as long as you can. And they're like, it's so oppressive. I don't even want to go to work. I say, no, go to work. Unless you are psychiatrically disabled, you get to work, because that's the way you get to the next job. You know what I'm saying?
I understand. But,
so it's unfortunate, but you don't have a COVID type thing. Like if you went in and said, you want me to come back to work, but I'm still scared and I'm under the care of a therapist or whatever, they're going to have to deal with you. Maybe it's an FMLA or a state of New Jersey FLA problem. Maybe it's temporary disability. I don't know. But if you're looking for work, you're in the weakest position you could possibly be in. So improve your position and then negotiate from a stronger hand.
Hey, Hanan, this is David.
Yes, David.
And your point is very valid, because there is unemployment discrimination. And if there's one job and two people and one is unemployed and one is not, all else being equal, statistically, the employer will hire the person who's employed and will move along. So yes, it does pay to be active and be working, even if it's not your dream job, as a stepping stone to get where you want to be.
Yes, but I have to just do a quick caveat to David's point. They're not allowed to ask you if you're unemployed. And you shouldn't tell them you're unemployed. You go back to LinkedIn and you fill in your gap. And Christine will tell you just how to do that.
As a consultant.
As a consultant, or I don't care. You could be a consultant to a nonprofit, right, David? You have people who've done that.
Form your own company. Just say, I mean, it doesn't have to be registered. Just say, you know, Hanan Consulting or Joyce Consulting, whatever you want to call it.
Hey, if I don't get this federal money, it's going to be Hanan Consulting. I'm going to be working out of my basement.
If you gave any piece of advice for free or for pay, since you were out, you're a consultant. You need to treat yourself as such, or put it down on your LinkedIn and your resume that is your title, because you're whether you're networking or just, you know, telling your friend, hey, you should do this or that, you gave advice and therefore you're a consultant.
Also, to have 100% complete LinkedIn profile or an all-star profile, you need a current position. So if you left your last employer, let's say 4 or 6 months ago, you have an end date. That's not a current position. It's a recent position. It's not a current position. A current position does not have an end date. So you can say you are a consultant for whatever your background is. And like Christine said, if you don't have clients or a client currently, you can put other information in your bullet points, like your skills and your value proposition, what you offer people, because those keywords will help you to be found on LinkedIn and will be relevant when you send out your resume.
You're going to come up higher in results than you would if you're not currently working. David is absolutely correct.
So I just want to go back to a really important point. If you go in and an employer manager says to you, or an HR person, so you're listed here as a consultant, so you're unemployed, right? So we've had this discussion. In fact, Alex and I were going to do a program for PSG and Mercer, right, Dave? That was already supposed to happen April 3rd, and it didn't, which is how do you deal with unlawful questions? And that is one. And, you know, sometimes, I mean, people laugh at me, but I say sometimes you just got to look that person in the eye and say, I'm not answering that question because that's an unlawful question. Now, you could say, oh, well, then you're definitely not going to get hired. But then you come talk to me because now you have a claim. And the other
But
thing,
you also need to know what you're going to say in response to that and other unlawful questions before you walk in. Are you going to give them the information? Are you not? Are you going to hold back? Are you going to say it politically correct? Are you going to say, I'm not answering that question? How are you going to approach that? And you need to be ready. And that's part of studying interview questions, which goes back to being prepared all the way through for any part of job search.
I agree with that. I'm just saying that how do you prepare for the question of, you know, what's your last salary? There's another one. New Jersey is really good. I mean, of all the states, New Jersey at this point in time is the best state for employment rights for employees, but it still has its lapses, right? But within the things it did recently, it said you're not allowed to ask employment salary history. Why? Because they discriminate. They'll pick somebody at 70,000 to do a job that's worth, you know, 100,000, and they're not going to pick the 100,000 person as long as they feel like the 70,000 person can do it. I'll tell you what, this just happened. My son, who's like a year out of college, is working in a job that he can barely explain, and I have no clue. It's somewhere in the IT world in sales. They fired 2 senior people, and he got a promotion. I'm like, okay, congratulations. You know, it is congratulations, but what are they saying? Desperate times require desperate measures. So they undercut somebody who was working for years and years, making probably decent money in favor of a 1-year out college kid. I don't understand, but you can believe that's why they want to ask the question. But they're not allowed to in New Jersey. They're not allowed to in Philadelphia. I don't know about Pennsy. But the point is, what if they say, what was your last job and how much did you earn? What kind of preparation is there? Some people will say, we talk about it at PSG, I need the job, I'm answering. I say, what kind of a shitty employer is going to do that to you? Pardon me for the tape. That's not right. What else are they going to do that's violative? You know, I would say just look at them and say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. Why not? Because it's unlawful. Chances are 9.5 out of 10, they didn't know that. But let's say they did know it. And they say, well, you realize this job's on the line. I could go to 5 other people who will tell me what I want to know. Okay, do you want to go work for Simon Legree, or do you want to just take your time looking elsewhere? And I'll say this is somebody who is near and dear to me, and I can't say who it is, worked in a job for many years. And every year I would say to that person, find a new job. Your management is oppressive. You're unhappy with them. You love what you do, but it's oppressive. And it took the 10th year for them to really do something that got this person really mad. Guess what? Found a new job, loves her boss, happier than I've ever seen this being be in the workplace in 27 years. Sometimes you just got to take a chance. You know, I'm not saying to be irresponsible. Maybe you keep it while you're looking elsewhere, but for God's sake, keep looking. Anybody else?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hanan. I asked questions about unemployment before.
Yeah.
And trying to understand if I made a mistake. Because what happened is just when they announced the extension of benefits, I had $12 left in my account, and I went ahead and put that through. So what happened is then the next time I tried to file, it said that my benefits were exhausted and that I had to reopen a claim.
Hey, all right, what's up?
I'm wondering if that.
Okay, whoever's talking on the phone, please mute yourself.
So now I'm wondering if that created a major problem for me. That
you know what? Honestly, nobody can answer that other than unemployment. So you should do what Christine said. Go online, type in a desperate question and say, I had some funds left. I should have extended. I used it. Maybe it was a mistake. How do I position myself to reclaim what is rightfully mine? And just
do it over and over again until you get an answer. Don't wait. Don't be polite. Just, do it today and tomorrow and the next day. Yeah.
Right. But somebody else in the chat box said, in the chat said that they've been doing that, going to the chat box, and they just keep getting automated messages that nobody
keep doing it.
Back to them.
Keep doing it. You might actually be that lucky lottery winner.
I doubt it.
I don't know. I don't work for them. I can't speak. But you just never know. So just don't give up, because you got to take care of you, Charlotte.
Yeah, I know.
You're giving me goosebumps. I feel bad for everyone that's like looking for a job. I want to just give everyone a position.
I like David's comment in the chat. At least we're not the Canaries. I'm not so sure. Cheap.
I have one last question about the legit legal question. So
yeah,
I'm also getting questions about my degree and the date I received it. To me, that's discriminatory. It will give them some impression, especially if I've had it a long time. They also want, if I don't give them that, they want my driver's license, my social security. I'm like, wait a minute, hold. There's too much information. I won't give it to them. Especially now in this world, we never get to see these people. 100 years ago, when we were looking for jobs, we'd walk into offices, we'd walk into HRs, and we get to see people. I'm not giving all that information, so I never hear back. Talk to me.
So a couple of points. Driver's license, absolutely not. Social security number, what for? Unless they're saying they're going to do a check, but they really shouldn't be doing a check until after they're considering you in the final rounds.
Yeah.
So, you got to be careful with it. But I'm saying to you, look, you sound to me like a person who's going to stand up for yourself, and that you have. Just be who you are. Go out there, like the old thing we talked about, the Rorschach test. Some shrinks actually still use it. God knows why. But the idea is like, who are you? Who are they? How do we fit together? If you're sensing no fit, keep looking. If you feel desperate, I don't know. I tell this to people. I tell people, go to a temp agency. Let them stick you at ETS for 6 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And then they go, we really love you. Can we have you? And they work out their deal with whoever it is. And there you go. Just it's a gig economy. Do what you need to do. Talk to Dave Schuckman. He's one of our resident experts on that. And, just keep going. I mean, look, what you're saying, which I totally agree with, you are bewildered. You're shocked by these crazy questions. Take it at face value. Hello? There's
keep in mind that anybody that interviews or asks you those things is not necessarily trained in legal questions. So therefore, you might get legal questions because somebody doesn't know better. And they're just not trained in what they can and cannot ask you. So sometimes it's just not their fault either.
Okay, because I know I'm not giving all the information.
I agree, and I do not endorse giving that information. That's my personal belief.
I think there's another thing to consider, which is really unfair. And it's to kind of Christine's point. Some of these people just don't know what's right or wrong, what they should or shouldn't answer. And so it puts us at a big disadvantage for a couple of reasons. One is you can't say, hey, that's an illegal question, I'm not answering it. Right away, they're throwing you out, or they're not considering it.
Yeah, probably true.
Hold on. So I think we need to find if there are certain questions that we are comfortable answering or finding an answer for them. Because unfortunately, if we stop answering questions, what else aren't you going to tell me? Are you being trying to be deceitful? You're trying to lie or persuade me in a negative way. It's really unfair, Joyce. I'm not saying it's right at all, but we all need to be a little tactful for some of these things. I certainly agree, you don't give out your personal information like social security number. The other thing is, when part of your initial question was, you know, they want the year I graduated from high school or college, whatever.
Well, those are two different things, David.
No, I know.
College, they are allowed to ask. High school, they're not.
Right, but to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but Joyce implied she doesn't want to give away her age. So I don't know if Joyce is 25 or 65, and I'm not trying to ask that right now. But a lot of us are concerned. We don't want to give away our age, or that we've been working for 30 years.
Yes.
And you know, if you hide that and they want to know it, they may just pass you by. What else are you gonna not tell me? And then the other reason is, if they're going to discriminate you because you're over a certain age, whatever that is, well, don't you want to find out on day one, rather than when you walk in for that interview and you did all the preparation and you drove for an hour? So it stinks. I'm not going to use any of Hanan's French, but it's unfair. As Alex liked to say, it's an unfair and illogical process. So there are other ways to get through that kind of barrier, and we just don't have time on this call. But yeah, we all have to think about, are some of these questions we're okay answering? Tell me your social security, probably not. Or other questions about age, maybe you are, but just put it in context of, some of these people don't know what that they do or don't know what they're asking. And if they are discriminating, get past it right away.
Yeah, but the thing is that my college graduation and my resume will show a huge gap of doing nothing, because we're told not to go back further than 15 years.
That's okay. That's okay. You might say I don't know you. I don't recall that I know you, Joyce. So I'll assume you're over 50. I'm over 50. Actually, I'm 60 and a week. And yes.
Hey, happy birthday!
Wow. Yeah. So I went to Trader Joe's early last week. It was nice. So what you have to consider is that people understand that you want to keep your resume to 2 pages and you're not going to put 30 years worth of jobs. That's okay. And you can tell that in a story, in an interview. It's a little harder to tell the story or why you didn't put your college graduation date. And because some people will say, what else are you not telling me? It's unfair. It's illogical, as Alex would say. So, but just make sure you have a story for each one of those that's very real and believable. Don't worry about the gap if you graduated college a long time ago and you have a gap on your resume until the last 10 years. That's an easy story to tell.
David, I was just going to say, I'm in HR too, and normally when you're doing an application for a job, they asterisk the really critical questions. So I never answer anything about my date of, my degree, unless it's required. And most times they're not requiring it on an application.
Well,
and if they are, you need to decide whether you want to work for them and give up that information or not in your ATS. And no one will judge you whether you do or you don't. You need to be okay with that, and then, move forward.
Yeah, because online you don't get the option of not answering.
You're right, which is why you should be connecting, engaging, and using LinkedIn before an ATS.
Right, yes. But that's what I'm saying. Unless it's unless it has an asterisk next to it, it's not required. You can go through the application process without answering that question unless it is a required answer.
Yeah. But to Joyce's point, the HR department, or maybe it's the generalist who manages the applicant trashing system, isn't paying attention well enough about turning off the requirement of certain fields. Or maybe it's a default by the manufacturer that they're not resetting. So we're a little stuck. If the only way you're applying is online, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Only about 30% of jobs are really published. So if you're not following Christine's advice and spending 100% of your time applying online, you're missing out on the bulk of the jobs that are potentially available.
The hidden job market. David is right. He's like my twin.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't look as good in long hair.
So I just want to go back to.
And I'm signing off. Thanks, everyone. I
Thanks,
just have another
David.
meeting. Nice seeing
Here,
you.
David.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for coming.
Nice
So I
meeting
just want to. This will be my last point. To Joyce and others who have this issue, and I hear it all the time. You know, how do you answer this, and what about that, and what's the effect? Maybe it's because I'm self-employed. This probably is. I believe in acting. You can be appropriate, but in my view, you need to be fierce. You need to be self-aware, self-protective. You know, not aggressive, just more like ready. You're ready to deal. If you get an unlawful question and you're tactful about it or whatever you want to say, and you're not absolutely desperate, if you don't get this thing, your family's going to die. You're like, who is Jean Valjean, you know, you got to steal the bread to feed your family and make the greatest musical that was ever made. If you're not in that position, then I use the Maya Angelou quote. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. If you get somebody who's pushing something improper upon you, I don't care if it's a date or a salesperson or whatever, and also a job interview. If your hackles are raised and you get this is just not right, if you are not desperate, don't take it. You know, if you get a little bit past that and maybe they're a little difficult or quirky and you can accept it, take the job, look for other work. But bottom line, if it's not going to fit for you, if you're going to have a problem on day 3 that you could have predicted on day 0, what are you doing? You're just, you know, we deal with bullying issues all the time. If you're in a bullying environment, it's hell. It's hard to get out. You know, it's like you're walking around with a target on your back. You can tell these things. You can ask people. You can see it. If it starts to develop, you have to deal with it, of course. But oftentimes I say to people, just like Christine did before, don't sue them. Get another job. Best way you can. If you're 62, maybe you got to sue them because maybe that was your last job. But for most other people, you get knocked off the horse, get back on a different horse. So, Christine, any final words?
No, I think that, you know, we try to answer all those questions, but if you think of something later, you know, feel free to use the slides, reach out to me or Hanan and ask us, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. But we are already way over on our time. So definitely, you know, we could probably stay here all day long and answer questions. And tell people what to do. So.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for producing this, and to all of you for coming in and sharing. And the chats were great, really, really fun.
Thanks to all of you.
Take care.
Thank you.